How you doing, man?
I am very well. If it isn't my second favorite Dudley, I have to say second favorite because we have a cat here named Dudley.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Do I get to see him?
Say hello.
Oh, there we go. No, that's a cutie. That's awesome. It's funny because I thought that he was just like sitting right there and you were looking at him. And then turns out you're having to chase him around the house. So sorry about that.
Mr. Chris, what's going on, man? How are you?
Oh, dude, things are good, man. Just enjoying close to the end of my day here. Got a little drink, hanging out, talking to you, and yeah, can't complain.
That's not a bad time. What are you sipping on there? That does look kind of tasty.
It is whiskey. It's this one called Macallan.
Uh-huh.
If you've ever heard of it, it's really good. I actually I did some work with a composer out in LA in 2020 or early this year. I forget which, but I was helping him out with a project. And like 3 weeks after we got done, this box showed up at my door out of nowhere. And it was this bottle of scotch that I didn't know where it came from. And he texted me right when it got delivered. He was like, "Oh, hey, that's for me." And I looked it up. It's like expensive, and I was like, wow, like it was one of the kinder things anyone's ever offered me, because I didn't even know he had my address. I don't know how he got it, but yeah, it was just a very nice bottle of scotch showed up at the door, so I was stoked on that.
That's really sweet. Well, I did see I think it was the Armo podcast. I could be wrong. Aaron labeled you as one of the only truly nice people that he knows. So I guess when nice things happening to nice people is just it's just a good time, isn't it?
I like talking. I like hanging out. Helping people out, and if that gets me free scotch, then it's a win-win. Why the heck not?
Absolutely. Cats and scotch. This is supposed to be about about the Voyeurist, but now we're at cats and scotch.
Yeah, no, it's devolved, but it's all good.
It is evolved. I mean, people are going to be voyeuring the cats and scotch, so it all kind of ties in. It ties into the concept of the album a little bit, like where you had the website, people could click on the thing, get themselves on the webcam for what the 10 seconds or so, something like that.
That was it was an idea that we had just to kind of like figure out how we could wrap the idea of the record into like people hearing new music. And it was fun because we were on there too. We would just get the cameras and set them up and then just leave it on. That way when people would be clicking in, they would every now and then they would see one of us just normally it was me just in this room working, but yeah, it was a good time.
I tuned in a couple of times, and there was a few times I saw you just doing something. You were kind of over the keyboard or up the back. Something like that. A couple of other times there was somebody with
I just turned this camera on and then let it run. Like I would just leave it on while I was working. So, very meta, working on music while kind of sort of promoting other music, and yeah, good times.
Well, it's all about tying things in together. Hey, we're living in the 21st or 22nd century. I can't even remember anymore, but we're living in some century that involves.
It's a big one.
Yeah, everything's got to tie into everything else for maximum voyeur. But speaking of the Voyeurist, it was one of the most overwhelming releases that I got to check out. Not just the album itself, but also a digital ghost. I may have blown the Australian server for Moment House on that one.
Dude, hey, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you very much. We put a lot of work into it, so that means a lot.
Enjoyed it is an understatement. I think I watched it. The first time I watched it, I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch this. Like, I'm going to be professional about this. And I had to watch it again directly afterwards because the whole time I'm just like.
Well, yeah. And what's interesting about it is, the fact that, those are all, it was the entire record, but it's not the album versions of those songs. Like it's, live recorded versions of those songs. So it's like you're getting the album, but not exactly, but it's interesting because hearing the album versions and then the live digital ghost versions, there's a handful of songs on the record where I think the the Digital Ghost live versions are my preferred version of the song, which is weird because those were like in a take and a lot more rough and everything. But there's just, I don't know, something about them. I enjoy it.
If that's what you call rough, holy crap! That was.
Well, mixed, and it sounds good, but it's it took us a day to record the instruments as opposed to like 5 weeks, 6 weeks. So that was. I don't know if it's good. I like it.
Yeah, I was a little bit like I wasn't too sure if it was like when I was listening to it, I didn't know if it was just the album paired with the visuals or if it was a bespoke recording. Well, that's I guess that solves that mystery. That's we went in and we re-recorded the entire album live in a studio. So basically, like, we just recorded everything mostly at once. We recorded all the guitars together. Recorded new 1-track vocals. And the idea being that, those songs live in a space between, album version and live version. It's not like we're playing the songs in front of an audience, but they are still live versions. And I think that, it was worth all that work, to get it to a spot where it's, it's something unique. And now I'm interested for the record to come out and have people comparing the two versions of the songs. So especially considering the Digital Ghost versions of the songs are how a lot of people are hearing them for the first time. So I think there's something about when you hear something for the first time, no matter what it is, you get attached to it. Like if you hear a demo version of a song and then you hear the actual album version like a year later, you're like, oh, I like the demo version better, when it might not actually be a better version. It's just what you attached yourself to, Yeah, absolutely. It kind of reminds me of the whole vinyl thing where, in the technical sense, a digital version of a song is just going to be better because you play it on your day one, you play it on, you play it in your 20s, you play it in your 70s, it's always going to sound the same. But if you have a vinyl, as you play it, it's going to chop change, it's going to get pops, crackles, or whatever. But that version of the song that you hear, that you attach to, that you get used to, that becomes your version of the song.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes,
I feel like Digital Ghost would be kind of similar, but also hearing the album itself, it's just like, well, you're asking me to choose between my children here. It's a pretty tough ask.
Well, I'm glad you enjoy the album. That's cool. I was telling somebody earlier that it's cool for me to talk to people who have actually heard the album because it's technically not out yet. So it still kind of feels like our thing that we've got and we haven't released to the world yet, but to hear people who have heard it and have an opinion on it, that's always really cool.
What was this? Speaking of the Voyeurist, it has a thick and ambitious concept behind it. What can you tell the good people about this concept?
Well, that's a big question, but also it's an interesting one because, depending on who you ask in the band, you'll get different answers, which I think is cool. I think one side of it is, particularly going through the pandemic, we were really made aware of the fact that so much of what people, ourselves included, were experiencing were not experiences really. We were like looking through a screen and like seeing other people's experiences. And, we were seeing these like digital versions of experiences, and we we're seeing these like tailored versions of people's selves that they were putting out, to the world. And, we just became very aware that like, it's like everybody's just like, they're like this and they're just like peeking in on like people's lives. It's like, hey, what's this guy doing? Like, what's this girl doing? Where is she traveling to? Look at these people's children. Like, the term voyeur came up because it's like, you're just basically spying on people and you're looking in on them and getting this, obscure view of what their lives are. And I think a lot of people also will compare themselves to that. So I think that that's a big portion of it, is just recognizing that so much of of experience now is not actually experience. It's, living vicariously through a phone or through a computer and just like looking at what everyone else is doing. But then there was also this parallel idea of like how you as a person now are not who you, like if you look at a picture of yourself when you were a kid, in most ways, that's a different person. Like your body has completely changed. You're almost completely new cells. You have thoughts, you have ideas, you have people you love, you have people you don't, you have relationships, you have experiences that are completely separated from that person, whether that is you at 8 years old, you at 10 years old, you at 20 years old, whatever. Like when you're looking back, like that is not who you are, and that's another portion of it that gets brought up in the album quite a few times. Just like, you are not you. Like every day you wake up, you're inching toward being a new person. And I think that, we're realizing that with us, like, how in so many ways, like, we're not who we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And just kind of grappling with what that means for us as people, but then also us as a band, Yeah, all that to say, it's a very heady idea, but one that really resonated with us. So, yeah.
Vibe that. Well, from a listener perspective, with the Voyeurist, I could say that Underoath has always been capable of putting out some great albums. You guys can't miss, really. But Voyeurist, you bet. But Voyeurist is it's a very different and more angrier beast. It's intense musically, vocally, all around.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it's interesting because like musically, we always just go in to write an album and just like we're just trying to do what makes us stoked musically,
Right.
And we're not trying to go in and write a particular record. Like when you hear a record, you're just hearing like a snapshot of where us collectively are creatively at that point in time when we were in the studio. Lyrically, it's also interesting because that is purely Aaron and Spencer, and up until this record, no one else had ever written a lyric, period, in our band. With the exception of on this record, Tim wrote some of the lyrics on the last song, Pneumonia, because that song was directly inspired by his dad passing away. So, when Aaron and Spencer were looking to do lyrics, like they brought him in, they're like, hey, like, we think that, you should have some input here because this is, in many ways, this is your story, The idea of, the lyrics being in a different spot, like it's always an interesting thing for me because I hear the lyrics in a lot of ways like a listener does, when they are hearing the song for the first time, because, for so long, the song lives as just a piece of music, and then when we get into the studio, that's where the lyrics come in, and then I'm like, oh, here's the lyrics for this song, so it's a interesting dynamic, but it's it's just what our band has always been. It's it's interesting looking back on albums. It's like, when we were doing Define the Great Line and Lost in the Sound of Separation, like Spencer was dealing with substance abuse stuff, and that was kind of dealt with, and just depression things and divorce things, things that, very personal to those guys. And that's what our lyrics are. And, I think that the fact that their lyrics are so personal, that makes it to where people are able to relate. Because it's like, they can look at it and be like, oh, me too. Like I felt that. It's not a blanket song about like, oh, like, whatever, about being in love, hey guys, haven't you ever been in love? It's like, no, like this is a very particular thing that's going on with a very particular person, and I can relate to it. So
it's also interesting to hear that the album was, you say that the album, you guys went into it making it the best that you could, that it wasn't exactly structured. From what I heard, I honestly thought it was. I got the impression that it was super calculated. You got your first 4 songs. They kick straight out of the gate. My favorite song, No Oasis, which
awesome. Thank you.
You bet. Like That song.
What's funny is that song was initially supposed to come like 8th in the record, and I was very adamant about it coming like soon, because like I'm like, we always put this like all of our like interesting, more experimental stuff toward the back of the record. I was like, why don't we move that stuff toward the front? That way, like if somebody only listens to the first 5 songs, they're getting the gist of what the album is. So I am glad that you enjoyed that.
Oh, dude. If you got somebody who only listens to the first 5 songs of a record, and even a reviewer, I'll listen to a whole thing, but there have been times where I'll listen to the first 5 songs and then I'll start composing an article, and I'll kind of,
because all the songs are the same. Yeah.
Yeah. But I got to the first. I got through the first 5. Get to know Oasis, and it's a bit cliche, but it was totally an eye of the storm moment where everything calmed down for a moment, especially having the visual first of Digital Ghost. That's where it's just I assume it's Gillespie in a mask, or someone in a mask in a room by themselves with Gillespie on the screens in the background. That's just, and it's not even that, it's just going boom boom. It's cuts. Oh, sorry, Dudley. Other Dudley. It's cuts of the actual of the player just going boom boom, like cuts of the actual hits themselves. I guess it's more of a. I guess this is more of a comment than anything else. But The Voyeurist it definitely became one of my favorite albums of the year, and the way it was written, the way it builds tension, like how we're talking first 5 songs, no Oasis, last 5 songs, especially ending on Pneumonia. That's just it's an epic.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, the placement of how everything just goes together. Like,
thank you. I appreciate that. You're one of the first people to hear it, so that makes me happy that it's connecting. That rolls.
Whoop, whoop. Actually, here's a question: is there an intention? I'll make this the last one. I don't want it to be, because I like you. I have to go back to other Dudley after this, which is this is just as good.
Yeah, the one you're punching.
Yeah. Is there a view to? Is there a view to release Digital Ghost as its own thing?
We haven't set anything, but in my brain, those versions of those songs, the audio is too good just to let them go away. Like, I want to see them released somehow, personally, but we haven't decided that yet.
The good thing about this whole album concept is that, the album, Digital Ghost exists, The Voyeurist exists. The other good thing is that the Digital Ghost is gone for all intents and purposes, at least from our end. And we can still kind of live it vicariously through the album. And I mean, other people who pick up the album will. It's good in the sense that if I'm doing this, then I'm not the only one. There's at least 1.2 million other people who are doing this, perhaps as well. But waiting for the opportunity to see that again. So, Mr. Chris, thank you so much for your time and the extra 5 that you gave me. You're a champion. Hope to see you very soon.
Yes. It'd be this year or next year, hopefully. Yeah, very nice meeting you. Have a good day.
I will. And I'll go back to other Dudley.
There we go. Goodbye, Dudley.
Recording stopped.
Good job. So I just pulled my mic out because someone outside has decided to start using their leaf blower. So
oh, nice. Well, I can't hear it on my end. So
if you can't hear it, that's a good thing. Hopefully the compressor misses it. Personally, as well. Now you can hear it, can't you?
Nope.
Really?
I've got nothing. Oh, you got a good setup there, man.